Adventure and Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
Wake up, America! It's time for the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY.com, West Palm Beach's #1 internet radio station. Here's your host, the Pipeman.
This is the Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman, W4CY Radio. I'm really excited about our next guest because they're some friends of mine from hell. And in all seriousness, they are some badass musicians with some great new music, and they are friends of hell. So welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Oh, it's good to have you, and as we can see in the background and behind me, we got a new album coming out. And I am such a fan always of album artwork anyway. I feel like today some people missed the boat by not getting to see that. One of my first albums ever probably one of the first, but especially in this arena, was because I saw this album cover in this record store. I'm like, I need to have that. Didn't even know what it sounded like. And that was Venom's first album, Welcome to Hell.
Yeah, it's a similar.
Yeah, exactly. So then I automatically, as soon as I got the promo for your band, I'm like, oh, they got to be badass. And you are. Like, I listened to a new song, Bringer of Evil, and man, not only is it cool because it has that old school metal sound, but it's also, weirdly enough, kind of like catchy. It's got this, vibe to it.
Yeah. I mean, I believe in even if the music is heavy or whatever, I believe in good songs. A good song have catchy chorus. It needs to be like a good arrangement. Good.
Absolutely. It has to, you have to be into it when you're the listener, and there's something that keeps you listening instead of like just listening to a few seconds of a track and being like, okay, now I know what it is.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays many bands forget, that even the heavier bands, let's say the ones you mentioned, like Venom or even Possessed or bands like this, they do have choruses and catchy songs.
Oh, 100%. I remember that's another one too. When Possessed came out with their first album,
yeah,
it was evil, it was heavy, but then it was like, wow, this is catchy,
It is, yeah.
And that's the way it needs to be. Listen, I think there's a big misconception a lot of times in metal for people that don't understand metal music. I think they don't realize, first of all, how much musicianship is involved, number one. Because I can tell you right now, like, to play any kind of metal, I think you have to be a superb musician, like insane, especially if you're playing something very heavy, very fast, It's not as easy as people may think. The other thing is there's just riffs in metal are always meant to be something that's memorable and catchy that like sticks in your brain all the time.
Tony Iommi said the best riffs are the ones that they sound good on a ringtone.
I love that. That is, you know what? I never heard that before. And that is a great point right there. Absolutely. So I think I'll have to change the ringtone on my phone right now to your new song, Bringer of Evil, because that would sound pretty cool. So tell us a little bit about the origin of the band for those that don't know you. And like, you have this complete new lineup now for the band. And that's what makes this second album, like, I don't know, far superior than the first. It's almost like you have this togetherness and tightness now that maybe wasn't there before.
Yeah, I mean, the first album, when I made this band, I knew from the start, let's say, for example, that the guitarist that was before John Dix is not a very good player, but because he was a friend, I said, okay, you can play or anything, but he wasn't adequate for the band, he couldn't play so good, but also with the two new guitars we have, they are way better and they sound amazing. But apart of that, I think that the new album, even the songs themselves are more, they're better. They have better melodies, better choruses, the arrangements, everything just happened by itself. It everyone fitted the music perfectly.
Yeah, and it's funny you brought up a point about somebody being a friend. I believe in this in a band, in business, in whatever. Like sometimes it's better not to do it with friends because you can't say certain things or you feel bad or you do things because they're your friend instead of really exploring your creativity.
Yeah, it's true. But it did happen. But I like the first album too. But I think the new album is way superior.
So and now you're going to be doing some live shows, okay, which you didn't really get to do before. Am I correct?
Yes, it's true. It's because our first singer, Albert, he wasn't up. He didn't want to do any gigs. And we knew from the start, he told us he's only going to sing in one album because he wants to kind of quit music. He's not up for it anymore to create. He gets too stressed. So because he wasn't, he didn't want to do any concerts, we said, okay, we're going to go along until, the second album, we change singer. And with the new lineup, everyone is up for it. So
nice. So what can our listeners expect from a live show from Friends of Hell?
They can expect like the songs of the album, but maybe played a little bit more bestial.
There you go. And so what was that moment in your life, if there was one, where you knew this is what was made for you? Making music was what was made for you. Was there something that happened in life that really kicked that into play?
Well, my love for music started from going through the records of my older brother. Then I did in the 70s. I discovered bands like Uriah Heep, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath. But I always had this thing that this is like something far because they are musicians. The music they play. I mean, Uriah Heep or Deep Purple is like just incredible. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Then in the early 80s when we got into thrash. At the same time, we got into hardcore punk, bands like Discharge or, Chromax, Agnostic Front, Chaos UK. Then I thought, oh, man, I can play that.
Nice.
I realized that I can actually play this music. And
that's
actually,
cool.
Never played what kind of hardcore punk bands.
Yeah, your timeline is probably like so exactly like mine. Like you had me right at the beginning when you said your brother, because I have a brother 11 years older than me that I rifled through his record albums. That's how I got my first albums. And, the albums I would hear would be like Zeppelin, Uriah Heep, UFO, and even stuff like the Rascals, the Grassroots, and like all that stuff. And then my first album ever, okay, so I lived in New Jersey and I was at the Jersey Shore, Seaside Heights, and I was playing this carny game. And if you won the carnival game, you got to pick out an album. And I saw this out. That's where it started for me, like just looking at an album and buying it based on looks. I saw this album up there and I was like, that's the one. And it was the first Kiss album when it first came out. So that was my first official album. But then, it progressed, it went to heavier and heavier. And then, like you said, thrash. I'm a total thrash metalhead from the beginning. I went to Slayer's first show ever. I was actually, you're going to laugh at this, I was at a show that was Venom, Slayer, and Exodus. And Kronos and Tom got into a fist fight backstage because Kronos was telling Tom that they're not black metal, that Venom is the only black metal. And it was so funny back then. And it's like, I look now, it's so funny too, because you listen to some of the black metal now, and a lot of black metal bands don't even consider Venom black metal at this point. So it's funny how the whole industry evolved. And I took that ride from the very beginning, just like you.
I think Venom is the only black metal band.
I agree, man. Badass. There's not one bad song to me. I remember getting that first album and just sitting there and listening over and over again, reading the lyrics, and I was just like consumed with it. And that was really my first introduction to satanic type music.
Yeah. They're perfect, Venom.
Yeah, no doubt. So what other things you have coming up in the future here that you want the listeners to know about and check out? And also let them know about where how to catch you on your socials, your web, how they can pre-save or just get the new album. It drops on April 5th. And give them all the details for us, please.
Well, we're not very much into social media. We only have one Instagram, which is Friends of Hell Official. The album, I think, because Rise Above Records has very good distribution in the States, everywhere. So I guess it's going to be in all record stores. And the important for us now, I mean, we're going to concentrate on the concerts for now, and then soon for the third album, I think.
Nice.
The only thing mention is, because we mentioned thrash, also Hell Butcher, the singer, has he was a singer of Niflheim, but they don't exist anymore. But now he has his own band called Hell Butcher, and they signed with Metal Blade Records.
Nice.
He played me the album. This is devastating thrash. Is so brutal, but at the same time melodic and catchy. Is incredible. So also look out for the Hell Butcher album, I would say.
So I got a funny Metal Blade Records story for you that ties right into what I said with Venom.
Yeah.
Because how I got that first Venom album is I was in LA in the early 80s in like at the beginning of the whole scene, and we used to go to this record store in the Valley called Oz Records. And there was this record store clerk there. His name was Brian. And he was brilliant. I've told him like a few years ago, I was like, your strategy was so brilliant. He's like, it wasn't a strategy. I was just like working there. But he used to, we would come in and he would show us all these albums to buy and stuff. Like the first time that he brought out it was an import of Welcome to Hell. And he's like, you need to check this out. And that was how I got that album, was from Brian Slagle.
That's good.
Right? And and you talk about the punk part. See, that was the thing. Like, you probably remember too, back in the day, I liked metal and I liked punk, but long hairs weren't allowed to go to punk shows and punks weren't allowed to go to metal shows, which I thought was absolutely stupid. So a couple years ago, I got to see one of my favorite bands for the first time that you mentioned at Hellfest, and it was Discharge.
Oh, yes.
And like now I've got like all the bands I couldn't see as a teenager because I've gotten to see Discharge, Subhumans, GBH, all those bands, and the Exploit. Actually, I have a funny story. I got Waddy all riled up before he was doing a show to where he just went like crazy on stage because I asked him in the interview. I interviewed him right before they went on. I'm like, what do you think of pop punk? And I knew how he was going to answer. That's why past it because I have the same feeling. Like that's kind of an oxymoron, you know. But yeah, I mean, like, it is great that nowadays we can combine all those things and all those influences to make great music. And I think that's exactly what you guys do. And that's why everybody needs to check out this new album. It is so badass. They definitely need to go out and get it. And I can't wait to see you guys at a live show because I think that's going to be killer.
Yeah, hopefully we will soon.
Nice. Well,
thank you so much.
Anything else you want to share that the listeners need to know that we haven't covered yet?
Oh, I think that was good.
All right, good deal. Well, hey, thanks for the great music and thanks for being on the Adventures of Pipe Man.
Pleasure, it's my pleasure. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipe Man on W4CY Radio.